for those of you that are looking at potentially doing uploads or recording your data, basically, if you go to the DRS homepage and you go to EDRS, so in this case we click EDRS, you scroll down, you'll basically it gives you a brief description of what EDRS is, and I'll give you some an Excel template, a Word document that will help you do your reporting. In this case, if you click on this data specifications template for electronic upload, it will basically pop up with a blank template. This template is what is necessary to do an upload. It has the appropriate columns, which goes from A all the way to AJ. And these are the varying columns that you need to fill out for the particular report. Next document that will be useful for you, for those people that are going to do uploads, is this county data reporting specifications for EDRS. Give it 1 second to open. You'll notice that it talks about each of the particular columns, what type of field it is, be it alphanumeric, meaning words, length of how long it can be, and a definition of what is actually meant to go there. So in the case of a report year, integer being a number, the length being 4, so in this case 4-digit numeric year. So in this case we're doing 2013, so that's 2013. Report quarter, it's an integer, a length of 1, so it would be 1, 2, 3, or 4, representing the particular quarter that you're working on. And it goes on to, again, to specify the place of origin, county of origin, state of origin, and these are the corresponding columns on that blank template. And it gives you what is necessary or what needs to go in that particular field, so that way you can upload your particular report. So once you've filled out a blank template and you are going to go and upload, and here let me show you what a blank template looks like. You can see reporting entity, the report year, report quarter, place of origin, county of origin, state of origin, and you fill out all the appropriate fields, tons accepted, tons disposed, any ADC or AIC, an ADC being alternative daily cover, an AIC being alternative intermediate cover. So you scroll and you see all that. So we'll close that. So to do an upload, you go to Logic. We'll go back here, and we're starting from a blank overview page. In this case, the overview page is where you would see the appropriate data, be it in-state, imports, exports, imports being from Indian reservation or out of the state or out of country, exports being waste that originated from within the state and exported out, and transformation being the waste that was transformed at one of the 3 permitted facilities, which are one being in Stanislaus and the other 2 being in Los Angeles. So if you click Upload Disposal Report, it gives you the option to browse for the file. Select Browse. You select the file that you want to upload, and you select Upload. You'll get this little green bar saying that upload was successful. And if you do end up with this yellow bar, it basically means that it wasn't able to determine the actual place of origin for a particular record. So if you click on Determine Disposal Type, it will give you the details of that particular record that it had an issue with. You can use any version of Excel for the template. My recommendation is just use the .xls version, which I think is all the way up to 2007. There's extra formatting in the newer version, which may cause some problems. So if you save a file as .xls, you tend to eliminate some of those issues that you might have in uploading. So, but So if you have any problems, but you can use any version of Excel. So get back to this record that you need to work on. It gives you the information that it had. So if you had a place name, it would give you that, the county, the state, the country. In this case, in our cell, we had Indian Nation. It wasn't able to determine that. So if you go to this disposal record type, you click this drop down, you'll notice that it's from California to California, but not an Indian reservation, or disposal from another U.S. state, from another country, from an Indian reservation. Those three representing all imports. Next three being all those that represent exports to another state, to another country, or to an Indian reservation. In this case, we're saying it came from an Indian reservation, so you select that option. It will, if you can't really see it, I'm not sure if you can on your monitors, but these fields are a little bit darker. These two fields need to be filled out. So you simply select the state at which it's located, and then you type in whatever Indian Nation name it is. So we have one like that. You see, if you start typing in a name and you don't see it, it will prompt you with the unknown Indian country. Simply select that and you hit save. Once you've saved all your records, it will then eliminate that yellow bar and it says your changes have been saved successfully. So once you've gotten that bar fixed and you have no more errors, you notice that down below that it has the particular columns and the data and the totals for the disposal that occurred for that particular type. So in-state being 260, imports was 115, exports was 90. And if you look over on the right, you'll notice some totals. If you go back to your file, and this is a good thing to do if you do uploads to make sure that all the records were taken into the system. If you scroll over, look at your dispose, simply select all those records. You can either sum at the bottom, or if you right-click down here, you have the option to put the sum there. But just look at the total. And in this case, we have 465 tons as disposed. If we go back and look at the particular quarter, we'll notice that for the total, we also had 465. And it's important to make that comparison to make sure that all the records were taken into the system and nothing was skipped. It's just a double check. Again, you can do this for the alternative daily covers. And if you do have any intermediate covers, you can also do that as well. It is pretty much the same where instead of selecting just that one, you select all the different material types. Since it could be any of those, simply select all the cells and again verify that the total is the same total as here as well. So now let's go on to some potential errors that you might come across as you do these reports. So say you had an issue down here or you ran into some problems. We'll look at a couple of those errors so that way you guys aren't surprised if you do come across them in the future. I'll show you here to delete a quarter. You simply click delete quarter. It will ask if you want to make sure and you hit OK. It will then erase all the data that you have entered for that particular quarter. Since we've eliminated all the data in that quarter, we now have the option to re-upload a disposal report. If you select Upload Disposal Report again, click Browse. In this case, we'll look at our first errors, select Upload, and you can look at what particular errors that might come up. In this case, we're showing you some examples of different errors that might occur. In this case, it tells you what that some of the basic information for that record. In this case, Sacramento 2012 quarter 1 record number, this being which row it actually is in, and what that error is, and then what it actually means. In this case, invalid record for this disposal year. If you look at the next one, it's record number 3, has the same column error issue, but it's actually telling us this time that it's actually the quarter that's incorrect. If we look down a little bit more, we'll notice that this one is record number 4, and this one is saying tons accepted, and the error message is that the total tons accepted cannot be less than the tons disposed plus ADC plus AIC. So the last error on this, so getting back to this, we're going to talk about the last error. In this case, is saying that the reporting entity was El Dorado, and the error being the reporting entity, and the record does not belong to the reporting entity. For those of you that have been working in DRS for a while, you do know that you are only responsible to report for any waste that you export as the county or for any landfills that operate in your county. So you do not have to report for any landfills that are particularly located in another county. So if we go back and we look at the particular Excel that we uploaded, we can look at those errors. In this case, if we recall, this record was for the wrong year. You simply have to correct that issue. And that was row number 2. For row number 3, we have the issue of the quarter. Simply select that one, change that. If we recall number 4, the 4 was being the more complex error in that the total tons accepted cannot be less than the tons disposed plus ADC plus AIC. So if we go back and we look at this one and we want to scroll to the right, we'll notice that if you highlight this, you've got to make sure that you select any ADC and AICs as well. It's important to note that this does take into consideration rounding, so if you have 35.2498, it will round it up. If you have, so watch your rounding, it does look at that, and if it does round up to be 0.01 higher on your disposed plus ADC plus AIC, it will prompt you for that error as well. So for this case, it's obvious that we're saying we disposed of 35, but here we have 10. Simply got to adjust it. Either being the disposed needs to go down or the accepted needs to go up. In this case, we're going to assume the disposed is correct and simply adjust it to back up to 35. Lastly, for the reporting entity, we reported for El Dorado. Simply, if that's a mistake, you simply have to correct it to be for Sacramento. And then that's it. So one thing to note is once you've made these fixes, you have to save the file. It looks at the last saved version. So if you make those changes and you go back and you try and upload your report and you did not save it, you'll come back with the same errors. So once you've hit save, you can go back to Logic, select Browse, go to that file, and click Upload. And again, this doesn't like that one. All right, so there it went. Oh, another quick question.
So that's the line item on the spreadsheet we need to be deleted. We have to delete the entire upload and re-upload, or would it self-correct when you save it?
So if you, let me read it again real quick. All right, so if you have in your Excel, you have a bad record or there's an extra record that doesn't need to be there, you simply have to delete the line. You just delete the entire line. It should automatically prompt you, do you want to shift the cells up? And you simply have to say yes. If you've already uploaded your file and you recognize that one record is bad, you can edit that record, or you have the option to delete that record. Darcy Bird will talk about that when we go over how to do manual entry. So depending on where you're at in the stage, you have the two options. If you haven't uploaded it and it's just a single line, you can delete the line out, have it shift the cells up so you don't have any blank lines in between the records, and then you can upload that file. So going back, now we notice that we have the upload successful. It took all the records. Again, we have the yellow bar. You can reference that. And one thing to note is if you do not spell a city's name correctly, it will simply prompt you with that yellow bar to correct that record. In this case, you can tell that someone tried to spell Stockton forgot the K. So as you type in the name and the place name, it will actually start prompting you for options of what you're trying to spell. Once you've gotten the one that you want, you simply select it and you hit save. Once you've corrected all the records, you'll notice that you have all your instates, your imports, your exports. It will sum it, and then you'll have your ADCs as well. Again, you always want to go back, look at your particular Excel file. And you want to make sure that the totals are the same. We select here, you'll notice that it's 320. Go back, look, and we have 320. And you want to do the same for your ADCs as well. So move on to another common error that you guys might run into. So let's delete the quarter again. Simply select Upload Report. You browse for the file. Select the file. And this. In this case, we have a column error or a column missing. So if we go and we look at the particular report that we're trying to upload, we'll notice that first things first is that there's two sheets. One thing to note is that when you do your upload sheets, it has to be, there should only be one actual Excel sheet in there. What the system does is it looks at the last Excel sheet in a particular workbook, and it will try and upload that. In this case, we have a blank Excel sheet, and there's nothing in there, and that's going to cause the issue. For those of you that might be using an older version of Excel, a typical workbook would have 3 sheets, so you have to make sure you delete those extra sheets off before you try and upload the Excel sheet. So in this case, we delete that. Another issue that might cause that same issue is if you have any extra data below or any extra data to the right. In this case, for some people, they do track beneficial reuse by the city that it came from. They add it onto their Excel sheet, but when you try and upload that, it actually causes an error because that data is not actually tracked and there's nowhere for it to go. So it causes a problem. So again, you simply right-click and click delete and remove that. Again, you would do the same down here. If you have any issues, you would just simply delete it. For example, say you wanted to total up your columns, but it's not an actual record. If you tried to do that and you tried to upload, you get the same error where it would say column error or column missing. Again, once you've made those corrections, you got to hit the save button. Hit save. Go back to logic.
Question: would there be a problem or other errors if we have multiple ADCs?
If you add in extra columns, yes, you will have problems. It has the particular columns has to be from A to AJ. You should have all the different material types that are commonly reported to as ADCs, and you have the option of an ADC other. And I'll show you that. So you have ADC other here. You simply report the tonnage, and then you get to actually put the description. So if, for example, you're using glass or sand or MRF fines or something to that nature, you simply have to put the description there, and you put the other. But otherwise, you should have all the particular types here, and you can have multiple ADCs from a particular jurisdiction. So you might have 15 of greenways, 10 of mixed, 5 of sludge, and you can have multiple other types as well. It's just simply you just need to put the tonnage, and the system will not have any issues with that. It's only if you add things extra after AK. So basically AK and on, if you add in extra columns for whatever reason, it will cause an issue with the system as it seeing it that it's a data point, but there's nowhere for it to go, and it causes the system to have an error. So if we go back, we browse our file, select the file again, click upload. As we fix those records, it went in no problem. So again, you can look at, you want to double check your totals. In this case, 325, and again, you do the same thing for the ADCs. All right. next potential issue that you guys might run across. Simply, again, select the file, click upload, and this one's a blank error that's just probably the most confusing and probably the most difficult one you'll come across. And that comes back to that data specifications table that we looked at, that Word document that tells you what goes into each particular column. So if we go and we open up the file, if you recall back when it looked at quarter, it said it had to have the length of 1, only one thing. In this case, we put first. Simply, you just got to correct that to be 1. So if you ever have that issue, it means that somewhere in one of these columns, you put something that it doesn't recognize. So for example, if you put in ADC, one of those ADC where it's expecting a number, you put a word, it's going to have an issue. If you put where you have a word, you might put in an ampersand or a symbol where most place of origins do not have any symbols in them, you might have an issue. And that's where it is. It's just those special characters or just something in the cell that it doesn't expect. So if you simply go and find those, and if you do ever have that issue and you simply cannot find it, please send it to CalRecycle, the DRS staff. We'll take a look at it. We'll try and find the error, and we will let you know what we found and get it fixed. And then that way you're not sitting there racking your brain and just getting frustrated. We want to help you. We understand that this is new to you guys, so please feel free to ask us questions, or if you have any problems, just email them in, and we'll definitely work with you on trying to explain to how we got it to work, and then that way, going forward, you shouldn't have that problem again. So, again, let's save it off like that. Go back to logic.
We have a general question. You had other material types like building control, compost, etc. that you were recording in the spreadsheet. Should you go beyond the AGL?
One thing to note is that if you are tracking things such as erosion control or stuff that might have been used as beneficial reuse at the facility, something that's not necessarily a cover, that only has to be reported on the facility summary. That will be talked about a little bit later. You do not have to report that to CalRecycle by jurisdiction. So if, for example, that you do record it in the Excel template because you do want to track it, one thing to note is that you have to delete that off and maybe save a different version for upload if you decide to do uploads. One thing to note about for uploads is that uploads are great for those that have a lot of records. And if you're looking at maybe, for example, LA or San Diego, where you have a lot of cities where a lot of waste may be coming from, so you have a lot of records, it's advantageous to do an upload because you're not sitting there and you're not adding them in one by one. If you have only a couple records, such as maybe one, maybe you just export once a quarter, or you just have one number to report, it's advantageous for you to just go in and just manually enter that data, and which Darcy will talk about a little bit later. So whichever means is better for you guys, it's important to understand. If you do a manual data entry, it won't prompt you for that information for erosion control, beneficial reuse, but you can still track it and it doesn't cause any problems. So, all right, let's go on a little bit. Once you get that, you hit upload. Again, you have the problem, determine disposal type. Again, you just simply have to correct the record that it had. We're in. One thing to note in this case, say you are Sacramento City and you're trying to report for that. It's not Sacramento City inside Logic. It would actually show as Sacramento. So you have the unincorporated or you have the county. Unincorporated and county are identical, but a city will be simply its actual jurisdiction name that's reported by the state. So that's one thing to remember, that It's not the city of Sacramento or Sacramento City. The city is actually, the name of it is Sacramento. So we're looking here in the Marin County. So you can either do that, the RA, since this is part of an RA, or you simply select Marin County or unincorporated. You select save, and then you save the issue. So let's talk a little bit about our last issue. So select here. So now, if you recall back, I'd said always double check to make sure your totals are there. In this case, again, we have 325. Let's go to our sheet. We'll notice that there's some records. We simply go over here, select all this. We notice that we have 465. Wait, so there's a discrepancy. In the case of this issue, what is causing it is if you go, and you might do this because, you know, we have to print out and we have to save copies. So if you go, oops, not that one. I want, right, okay. It's not there. I don't know why. Okay, here we go, page break preview. So what I wanted to show you is this, page break preview. The issue is you might have to make a hard copy and you have to save it. So you'll set a print area. If you set a print area and you don't encompass all the records, what it does is it stops at where you put that break. So in this case, we stopped at record number 9. And if you scroll over, you'll notice that our difference is the sum of these 3 cells. So if you set a print area and all your records don't go, double check to make sure that you clear the print area. To do that, you simply go up to one of these. And this one's formatted. Oh, there. Simply clear print area, and you remove it, and you should have no problems. Now, in the cases sometimes where you have double records, one thing to note is when you hit that submit button, only hit it once. If you press it as if you think that it didn't go and it's still thinking, it will try and upload it multiple times. If you click the submit button, you'll try and look. You should see the spinning little circle up here. It will be spinning like it's thinking. If it's thinking, it didn't come back real quick, it's probably thinking. And you got to give it a little bit of time to catch up. It's got to check all your records. But if you click submit multiple times, it can upload it more than once. The other thing is if you have 2 people working in that same quarter and say you didn't realize you were both working on it and say your partner uploads it, you won't see that it was uploaded unless you refresh that particular page. So you might upload it, but it will take both uploads and actually double all the records. So as I get back to this, we notice that we missed these 3 records. So I have the option of going back in here, deleting the quarter, and re-uploading the file since I cleared the print area, or you can go in and you can manually correct or update the records that were missing. So to go over that, Darcy Bird's going to talk about the manual data entry in a minute, but we're going to go through any questions you might have that we haven't gotten to. So
we have had a few times when our data doubles. What did we do wrong?
So again, for those data doubling questions or issues, just make sure you don't hit the submit button more than once. Let it think. If you hit it once, just try and look. There's probably something on the page showing that it's trying to think and just trying to process your request. But give it a minute to catch up and process it before you hit submit again. Because if you keep clicking submit, it's just going to try to keep processing it. It might double, triple, or quadruple depending on how many times you click it.
And this is not an error question, but it's a logic question. Can we access a list of jurisdiction names as found in module?
For the jurisdiction names, most of the cities are already in there, so you shouldn't have any problem. We could get you a list for your particular county and see who it rolls up to. And what I mean by roll up to is if it's a place such as maybe you're trying to track the airport, like San Francisco, you may identify it as coming from the airport, but it would actually belong to particularly maybe an unincorporated portion of this county. So we can track things by the actual place of origin, not necessarily an actual jurisdiction. And that's one thing to understand, is that you do not have to actually put jurisdictions names, but you can actually put city names, townships, areas. We have a lot of those already in the system. If you go in and you try to do the manual data entry and you start filling out that box, it will actually start guessing at what you are trying to type in. That's a means to come up with, and if you see it there, you're free to select it. If you come across one that you don't see, or you're trying to find one, just email us at DRS. We'll definitely try and work with you, try to figure out what the issue is, if it's something that needs to be tracked on your end, or if it's something that was just simply skipped. Maybe a new city got added and we didn't know about it. Just let us know and we can make sure to get those fixed in the system.
Will deleting a quarter on double entry situation delete one instance or the whole thing?
So if you click the submit button multiple times and it uploaded more than once, when you click delete quarter, it erases everything. It erases your facility summaries, what you've uploaded, or even what you've manually entered. It erases that entire quarter. So it's important to know that delete quarter is basically start fresh button. So if you do click it and you say, yeah, you want to do it, it's basically saying, I want to start fresh, go from nothing. So with that said, is there any more last minute questions before we go on to manual data entry? All right, doesn't look like we're getting anything, so here's Darcy Bird to talk about manual data entry.